Hey, Kat. Oh, can you hear me? Oh. Go ahead, Jeff. Get us started.
All right, guys. There's been a request to have videos on if you can, please. So everybody can be a little more familiar with everybody else.
There.
So if that's a possibility, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, welcome back. We are going to be going over rules 7 through 12. Before we do that, though, we wanted to go back over, at the end of last meeting, we had the quiz, but we were never able to go through and talk about the questions. We ran out of time. So we were never able to go through and talk about questions. Do me a favor, too, if somebody has a question and they break in, tell me who's talking, because with all of this, we're on 2 or 3 different pages, and I may not see you exactly who's asking the question right away. So, Robert, were you able to pull up results of the quizzes of that quiz, of a past quiz, or not?
I don't believe so, but let me double check.
It's no big deal. I'll just read the questions and we can go over them again. So it's no big deal.
Okay.
All right. So question number 1, how wide should all volleyball court lines be? Correct answer, 2 inches. Even the center line under the net, if they have a 4-inch line, they were instructed a couple of years ago that they needed to paint a shadow line or another line in the middle to create a 2-inch line. So they're supposed to have it. Options are, if that center line's not there, we can tape if it's blank, like if it's going through the circle. They're supposed to have a shadowed line, but we can use tape if we need. If we have a 4-inch line and we don't have a 2-inch line, are we not going to play the game? No, we are going to play the match. Okay, just let us know that that school is not in compliance with that rule. Okay. The visiting team captain will call the coin toss for the deciding set. That is incorrect. The home team in any deciding set, 3rd or 5th, the home team will call the coin, not the visitor. The visitor called the first one. After Team A's first contact, the ball touches a banner over a playable area on their side of the court. The R1 let's play continue. That is correct. If it touches anything above on your side of the court and you have a hit remaining, you're going to let that play on. You're not going to stop the play. The only thing is if the ball maybe comes to rest, like maybe there's an air conditioning unit or something big up there, and if the ball is delayed or comes to rest, that would be the only situation where you would issue a replay. A back row player jumps with his foot touching, but not over the 10-foot line, and completes an attack on a ball that is completely above the height of the net. Play continues, or back row attack, loss of rally point. This will be a back row attack. The line is part of the front court. You have to be completely behind the line for a back row player to legally attack that ball that's higher than the net. Okay? If a live ball touches a spectator who's standing in the front of the bleachers, but no players are in the air to make a play on the ball, is it a dead ball, loss of rally point, or is it a replay? If there is no one there to make a play, the ball is dead. Award the point, or award the point, and move on. Okay. A player is pursuing an errant pass towards their team bench, and as they play the ball, a team member uses their hands to keep the player from falling. Will you let play continue, or do you call or is this a loss of rally point to the opponent? It will be a loss of rally. We had a big discussion in the R1 with the C1s and 2s last week about this very play. If team members are supporting a player that's coming to the bench, then that is giving assistance. That's lending assistance to that player, and he may not legally play the ball. if anybody has questions about these two, you can chime in. The home team provides a volleyball that has panels that are black and gold, no white. Is this legal or illegal? This would be an illegal volleyball. 1/3 of the volleyball must be white. Hopefully, a ball like that will not have the official National Federation seal on it either. That is the other requirement of a volleyball, that it has to have the certification stamp on there. There are 2 different certification stamps by by the National Federation. That can be on there. What is the minimum required distance between the sideline and the scorer's table? Okay. This would be 6 feet is the minimum distance, but we want greater distance as much as possible. But 6 feet tends to be is the minimum that we want around the court, okay, on all sides. During warm-ups, officials notice a player wearing an earring. The R1 informs the coach, who asks the player to remove the earring. The player refuses to remove the earring. Is this A, no penalty, B, officials charge an unsporting-like conduct to the player, C, player must stop warm-up and may not play in the match, or is it both B and C? Okay. This is D. It is both B and C. Okay, it's unsporting, and they may not continue. They have to stop their warm-ups. They may not play in the match. Anybody disagree with that one? Okay. The team's uniform jersey is white. The libero has a tie-dye jersey that is blue and yellow. Is this legal or illegal? This will be considered legal. The requirement for the libero jersey now is that it must be contrasting. It is no longer, there a while back, we were talking about that if one had a multicolored jersey, for the regular team was wearing a multicolored jersey, the libero had to wear a solid color, or vice versa. That is no longer the case. The case is that as long as the jerseys are contrasting in color, that is a legal jersey. Okay. So if we were talking white and gray and a light gray, no, that would not be contrasting enough. So then you would have an issue.
Excuse me.
Yes.
If multiple liberos on a team, do they all have to have the same colored jersey?
No, I believe they do not. They believe they can have different colored jerseys. Now, remember, in high school, you can only have one libero playing at a time, or on for that set. In other levels, you can have multiple liberos, but we're not dealing with the other levels. So yes, the one libero that is listed on the lineup sheet for that set, it doesn't matter if he has a white jersey and another guy maybe has a yellow jersey, another libero. I believe that's legal unless somebody else knows of a situation where it wouldn't be. So I don't think I've ever experienced that, Dan, though, where I've had liberos, if they had multiple liberos, where they actually had different jerseys like that. All right, if a player is discovered wearing an illegal uniform, an administrative yellow card is issued, and the player is instructed to leave the set until it can be corrected. The coach takes a timeout so the player can correct it and remain in the game. That is correct. That is allowed. That if you are sending a player out for a uniform situation, the coach may take a timeout and allow that player to correct that uniform. Okay, and that could keep him in the game. Otherwise, he has to leave until he can correct the uniform and then come back in at a later time. The R2 is responsible for talking with the official scorer, timer, libero tracker, and the line judges. This is incorrect because the R2 is responsible for everybody except the line judges. The line judges talk to the R1, who will instruct the line judges on what the R1 on what he wants. Okay. A team may have 2 designated liberos per set. We just talked about that. That is obviously incorrect. You may only designate 1 libero per set. Now, another libero can be sitting on the bench in the same uniform, in a contrasting uniform, just not eligible to play that set. The coach is probably planning on putting him in a later set or not playing him, whichever. Last one. If a team has an injury and no legal substitute is available, the libero may be used as an exceptional substitute. And that is correct. If you have the libero, but you have an injury where a player cannot play, and the libero, they only have 7 other players, including the libero, that libero may enter the set for that injured player. If there are other available substitutes, however, the libero may not take over for that player. So if they have another option, they have to use that option before they are allowed to redesignate the libero as a player. Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right, we are covering rules 7 through 12 tonight. We are going to do what we're going to do it different than we did last time. We're only going to have the new officials go with Marianne, and then everybody else, C3 and above, is going to stay together in one group, and we're going to go through those rules. So, Robert, do you have?
Yeah, it should be ready to go.
How much time do I have with them?
You are going to have, I'm going to say, a little over an hour.
Okay.
All right.
How fast?
We'll call you back. You'll get like a 1 minute. There's a way we'll send a 1 minute warning. It'll tell you like a minute that.
Okay.
You'll see that you have a minute left. Jerry, yes.
Hopefully you can hear me. We also had a second part of the quiz and 5 more questions.
Was there?
I hope there was, unless I was sleeping.
No, that was it. We had 15. That was all the questions.
Oh, okay.
We did 2. I had 15, right, Robert? There was only 15. There was 15 questions, right?
There were 15.
Yeah.
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 I counted, Jerry. I got 2 sheets. It's 15.
Okay, thank you.
They may have been in a slightly different order, possibly. That was what I sent to Robert to put into Zoom. All right, so we will have a test too. We'll have a quiz, only 10 questions tonight at the end of the set. Robert, you're still working on getting everybody situated?
Everyone is where they need to be.
Including Marianne?
I believe including
Yeah,
me.
she was there. I guess maybe she was the last one you moved because I saw her still with us.
I have a question.
Yes, Kevin.
It's telling me to join a breakout room. Do you want me to go there?
Yes.
All right, I'll be joining that then.
Okay. All right. Rule 7, roster and lineup. Okay. We all know that the coach needs to submit a roster. We want that when? When do we want that roster submitted? Anyone? Jack, when do we want the roster submitted?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, or we want it at the, actually, we want them to
find a
submit
new
the
button.
roster. No, we want the roster submitted at the at the coin toss. So the roster comes in at the coin toss is when it needs to be there. All right? At the pre-match conference. Okay, but you may make changes in the roster up until the 10 minutes. So they have to submit it. If he makes a mistake or wants to add a player that showed up late, as long as he does it before the 10 minutes, no issues. We're good to go there. Okay. What is the penalty for a player that comes to the sideline to get into the game and you discover that they were not on the roster? What would we do in that situation? Player comes up, the match has already started. Player comes up, tries to get in. You call out a number, but the official scorekeeper tells you they don't have a number 25 listed on the roster. What do we do at that point?
Yud.
Yud, it is a Yud, correct. Okay, but you have to correct. They may not enter the game until you correct the roster as well. Okay. Okay, 2 minutes before. Did I make a mistake? Somebody have a question?
Is that a loss of rally?
Not for the first one. Okay, if we have another infraction, yes, it will be. Okay. 2 minutes is when the service order needs to be submitted. So you have the roster and then the lineup, rather. 2 minutes prior to the set starting is when you need to submit. 1 minute, it's 1 minute between sets, right, guys? Right? It's at one between sets, it's 1 minute. Prior to the match, it's 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay, if there is a clerical error and the libero number is listed as 7, but there is no number 7, okay, on the team, that is a situation where we are going to allow a change and not penalize. We will not penalize for a mystery or number that is not listed. If no team member is wearing that. If they submit a roster and one of the players is, let's say they put down number 7 is in the third serving position, but you get out on the floor and you see number 14 is standing in that position, okay? And if they have a number 7, they have to replace them, and they may sub if they wish. If they want a number 14 in the game, but he put number 7 on the roster, if there is actually a number 7, that player must go into the game, and they may do a sub. If they put 7 on the roster and there is no 7 on the bench, they can still insert that player without penalty via a sub. So. All right, moving on.
Hey, Jeff,
Yes.
real quick. Does that eliminate the ghost substitution that we used to do for that phantom number? We don't do that anymore now. We just change it.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Same situation. It would be the same situation. Yes. Okay. So if there's a non-listed number, you can sub in the correct number.
Yeah, Jeff,
Yes.
I'm looking at Rule 7, and it says here under that player coming in illegally, it says there's no 2 chances. He comes into the match, not on the roster. That's totally illegal, loss of rally point.
Okay. Oh, you're right. Substitutes would penalize with the loss. Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Number 3.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was asking as well.
Okay. So that's the one. Yes. So 711 penalty 3 says yes. If you do not have the roster, if you do not have that player listed on the roster, we are going to penalize. So not a yellow card, but we're going to penalize with a loss of rally and point. Okay. All right, moving on to Rule 8, the serve. Okay. The server has 5 seconds to contact the ball from when the R1 blows his whistle and initiates the serve. The server may toss the ball and attack it, or in high school, the server may serve that ball out of their hand. So if the ball is sitting in their palm and they do this type of a serve, that is a legal serve in high school, okay? It's not a legal serve in other rule books, but in high school, they may serve while holding it. They may not, however, use 2 hands to make a serve. In other words, they cannot toss it and then, if you can see my hands, they're not allowed to strike it like this with both hands, okay? It has to be, if they're tossing, it has to be with a single hand to strike the serve, okay? Or they can't do this and try and do like a bump type of serve. That is not legal, okay?
Jeff,
Yes.
so as long as they serve it, they bounce it off the floor. As long as they serve it in 5 seconds, they're good, correct?
From your whistle, yes, correct.
Okay. Last year, I had some incidents with Wainimi with the boys. We all know what, they're all great soccer players and a bunch of hot dogs they are. So they started doing this thing where they would drop the ball to their foot, kick the ball back. I blow for the whistle, drop the ball. They would kick it back up with their foot, catch it, then serve it.
I would say that's illegal. What is everybody else? What are some of the other C1s think about that? Because it cannot touch a body. I don't believe that it can touch a body part prior to them serving, prior to them contacting the serve. That's where I think the issue on that would come in.
Contact.
Who said that?
The foot is illegal contact, so that'd be their first contact with the foot.
Correct, but you can't serve with your foot. You're not allowed to drop and kick and punt the ball over. That's not a legal serve either.
And it's illegal.
So now, if they throw the ball up, you could, Chris, what you could do is issue a reserve on that very first one and say, if they do that, if they hit it, you could issue a reserve, and that's taken away now their one reserve that they would have legally. So, and then if they do it again, then you could give them the side out or give the loss a rally. Okay. All right. Sorry, where was I? Okay. We know server must contact the ball between the sidelines extended, so they may not be outside of the edges of the court. Okay. As a matter of fact, I believe they have to be inside the edges of the court. So I don't even believe they're allowed to be on the line, on that little dash line that's there at the edge of the court. I don't believe they're allowed to be on that as well. So they have to be within the confines of the two sidelines.
That is correct.
Thank you, Kathy.
But they can't start out, hey Jeff, they can't start outside.
Yes,
that
they can
as
start
long as they complete
the contact
as
of the
long as they
ball.
complete- I was just trying to explain it real quick. Anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, no. I was just saying where they contact the balls, where they're legal or not legal. That's the rule.
Yeah, you'll see some will
Right.
do some servers like to do a button hook where they do start outside the sideline and they'll curl
Right.
around and hit it. But as long as they're at contact, both feet were between those two sidelines, you're good to go. It's a legal serve. Obviously, we all know a jump serve, as long as they leave the floor behind the end line, attack the ball, they can land anywhere they want. So Michael Jordan, if he runs back, if he's serving and he hits it, he jump serves and it serves the ball and lands at the 10-foot line, all legal, as long as he left the floor behind the end line. A serve may not touch any overhead obstruction. If it does, it is out of play. So that's the one situation where they cannot contact that banner up there and then come down. It would be illegal serve or a service fault. Okay, a player is allowed a reserve one time during their term of service. So player comes up, throws up the ball, doesn't like the toss, lets it drop. They get a reserve, okay? Throws it up again, maybe serves it. Then next serve does the same thing, throws it up, lets it drop. Now that is their second time that they let it drop. So now you're going to award the loss of rally. Okay. Talked about that. Okay, the serve must legally cross between the antennas. Okay, completely between the antennas. So if it's curved, if it's near the edge and it sort of curves over the top and back in, that is not a legal serve. It must pass completely between the two antennas. Okay. All other members of the serving team have to be completely on the court when the serve happens. So if someone is standing with half of their foot on the line and half of their foot outside the court, you would have a rotation issue. Okay, so you would call an out of rotation on that particular situation. we're going to spend a lot of time. We're not going to go into rotation and rotation faults very much tonight. Hang on, Jerry, I'll get to you in a second. Because we're going to spend in the next one, we're going to spend a lot of time on alignment, rotation, and back row violations. That's going to be in our next meeting, and we're going to spend a long amount of time on that. So I'm not going to spend too much time tonight on those two areas. Yes, Jerry, go ahead.
If you have one person that is half in and half out of the court, and not the server, but let's say the, I don't know, left back, wouldn't that be a line violation rather than a rotational thing on the serving side?
I've always called that as an out of rotation because they're not standing on the court they're not standing completely on the court. So, because we really don't have a lot, right, for other than the center line. Well, we have the server line call and we have the center line call.
But that is a line violation.
I thought it was a line violation too, but that makes sense what you said, Jeff.
So I've never called it a line violation ever. If somebody can find that and find where it might be that, we can, or I'll look it up and get back to you.
I don't know if it's me, but I didn't hear the question or what he said.
He said, yeah, his mic is a little quiet. He questioned if you have a player who is not standing on the court or standing partially on the court and partially off the court at the moment of service on the serving team, we're talking here. Jerry was asking, is that a line violation and not a rotation, not an out of rotation violation? So, yeah, that's what I've done forever. I've always called it that. I've never called it anything other than that.
I think we should take up a donation of $1.50 to $2 from everybody in the unit to get Jerry a new microphone.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that, but whatever.
What did you say?
All right. So Rule 9.1 says all players need to be seated on the bench. We know that in California, we are not adhering to that completely. Players may stand as long as they stand beyond the end of the bench, okay, and do not encroach upon the playable area. So we are allowing players to stand past the end of the bench that direction. So that is a modification, a California modification. Okay. Okay. We also don't know, well, the book says you're supposed to change benches at each, between each set, but we are assuming this year, it hasn't been official yet, but we are assuming that there will be no changing of benches during this season. We think everybody's going to stay on their same side the entire match, including a deciding set. But that haven't been given the official word on that. Yeah, Jerry.
Okay. In the case book on page 86, it says a player, well, it's a second little bullet thing here. It says a player, while the ball is in play, touches the court completely across the center line without part of the hand foot. I missed that part. Here we go. There's, I believe it's a line call. It's on page 86.
86 of the case book?
Yes.
Hold on. Sorry. Let me. So it's under, you say it's under signal. Line violation indicates. Okay. Line violation indicate the line where the violation occurred by extending arm and, okay, we know that. Server at the moment of contact steps on the end line, we know that. A player, while the ball is in play, touches the floor completely across the center line without part of the hand, with a part of the hands, feet, we know that. A player contacts the floor across the center line with any part of the body other than the hand, the ball. So you're just looking, Jerry, you were just looking at the signal.
Finish reading the first part is what he's saying. Finish reading the first bullet.
Server, the moment of contact, steps on the end line or the floor outside the lines marking the width of the serving area. So that's what I was talking about earlier. That's if the server is not within the sidelines. That's not pertaining to the player non-server, the non-serving player. Is that what you were talking about, Jerry?
Yeah, somewhat. But
Okay, so that's still only, that line violation still only involves the server, not the non-server. So I believe we are doing an out of rotation. All right. All right, contacting the ceiling or an overhead obstruction. If the ball contacts a ceiling or overhead obstruction, it is playable as long as the team has a hit remaining. If it is the third contact and it strikes the ceiling or an obstruction above their side of the court, we have an out of play and the ball is dead. All right. If the ball strikes the ceiling and goes across the net, across the plane of the net, same situation, it's an out. If the ball strikes anywhere over a non-playable area, regardless of the ricochet where it comes back, okay, also an out. The only rule, or the ground rule, like San Marcos is a good example of where they have a beam right in the center, right over the court. And so that's about the only time we allow where it will strike that and come back. We call that staying on their side of the net if it strikes that center beam, okay? And then on the first or second contact. All right. Okay. Is a ball dead immediately when it enters a non-playable area? When it enters the plane, we're talking the plane of a non-playable area. Will that kill the ball immediately? What do you think, Tony?
I don't think so. I think it has to touch something in the unplayable area.
That is correct, because we have that situation where if a player can leave one body part touching the playing surface, the playable area, then they may make a play over, for example, the ball penetrating into the stands or the ball going over the bench. If they can keep a foot on and still play it and bring it back, we let play continue. So we do not kill it until it has touched something or someone in that non-playable area. Okay. Okay, when is a ball considered to have crossed the plane of the net? What is required for it to consider to have crossed the plane of the net?
To cross or to enter the plane?
No, to cross.
For it to be entirely on one team's side?
Okay, yeah, when the entire ball has crossed, has completely passed beyond the vertical plane of the net.
Over the net, between the antennas, without touching the antennas?
Correct. Hold on. Okay, a ball, here, let me read it. Actually, it's a little tough here. A ball is considered to have crossed the net when it has completely passed beyond the plane. That's one, okay, vertical. So 100% past the vertical plane, is partially over the net and contacted by an opponent, that we also consider that to have crossed the net, okay? Or no part of the ball has crossed the net but is legally blocked. So that would be a third, if it's a third hit and you come over and they do a stuff block where they 100% block the ball on the opponent's side of the net, that is also same situation, considered to have crossed the net. Okay.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah,
Jeff.
Yep.
Hey, you were, I just checked with a couple people. You were right. That is an outer rotation when the foot's outside on the serve receive side. Just so you know, that was correct. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay. Simultaneous contact. How many people have ever called simultaneous contact on two players? You have, Jerry? don't think in 30 years I remember calling a simultaneous contact where two players sitting, my arms are two different players, where two players are where the ball contacts two players at the same time and plays. I always call one, it contacted one or the other. But simultaneous contact, both players are eligible in high school to play that ball if you rule simultaneous contact. If clearly one player plays it ahead of the other, they obviously may not play it for a second time. Okay. All right. Multiple contacts. And again, we're actually going to go into, I got some ball handling video we'll talk about, and we're going to go through some ball handling stuff, and that it's going to include most of the multiple contact stuff. But first contact may be a multiple contact. First play on the ball may be a multiple contact. So that is, if the ball is coming over, even if it's a floater and it's their first attempt, and they do a multiple contact with their hands or with two different body, or if it strikes two different parts of their body, we're going to let play continue. Also the same as if it's off a block, which we do not count as our first contact, then, and it ricochets and hits player in two different spots on first, that's our first contact, or we're going to let play continue. Okay. Multiple contacts after the first contact, however, then we have a violation. Okay, just clarification, an attack is any action other than a block or a serve that directs the ball towards the opponent's court, okay? A third hit regardless is always considered an attack, even if it's not gonna be headed over the net, okay? If you know it's not, but it could still be an attack. The only reason, because what I know we've all seen this, the ball is headed close to the net, but looks like it's not gonna break. The team comes over, the other team comes over and blocks it. Now that original team has life again because they can continue to play the ball at that point. So. Okay, definition of a block is the action of a player close to the net that deflects the ball coming from the opponent by reaching higher than the top of the net at the moment of contact. A block may involve wrist action, provided there is no prolonged contact. So you need a couple of things in order to have a block. You need a couple of stipulations. One, the players have to be higher than the top of the net. So that really comes into play when you have a setter involved, because if the setter is there like this, but their hands are not higher than the top of the net, okay, you're not going to consider that a block. And if it was to touch their hands, we're going to consider that first contact. Okay, so that's their first hit. So if it's that back row, we're talking a back row setter here, of course. Also, you need to be within arm's length of the net to have a block. You cannot have a block by a person who is standing at the 10-foot line. If they jump, it's a hard-driven spike, and they jump near the 10-foot line and come up, even if it's a blocking action, that is going to be their first contact. It is not going to be considered a block because they are not near the net. Okay. A collective block is a block by more than one player. The reason that that's so important is that if you have a back row player or a libero involved in that collective block, even though they did not touch the ball, you're going to have a violation. You're going to have an issue. So that's why we need to know the definition of a collective block. It's two or more players. Okay. Okay. And we know a back row player is not allowed to participate in completed block. And the block it's a completed block when it has touched one of the players. So if a back row player goes up, but nobody in that collective block touches it, play on. We're not calling them. We're not going to call anything there. However, what's the situation? What do we do if a libero is involved in that collective block and we don't have a touch. Do we have a problem there? I believe we do. I believe the wording is that libero may not participate in may not attempt to block. So that's the only difference. The difference there is that a libero cannot attempt to block the ball. So if the libero is involved, now you have an issue. Okay, and we do know the libero is not allowed to complete an attack if anywhere on the court, regardless of whether they are front row or back row, if the ball is completely above the top of the net. So that makes a difficult call because you could have the libero who's 15 feet away from the net jump and strike that ball, and you have to determine whether that ball was entirely above the height of the net. So with me, I watch the flight of that ball. Does it have any arc to it? Does it travel up, or is it flat and headed down? That's what I use to help determine that call. Anybody else have a different way of looking at that or determining that call when you have the libero attack the ball from the back and it's close to the top of the net?
I sometimes get down lower, but I don't know if I recommend that. That's not a recommended technique. But
it is not. As a matter of fact, yeah, I think it even says in the official's manual that you.
I know, but that's what I do to make sure it's.
Right. It says you're supposed to. You're sort of like. It's sort of like, you know how a baseball umpire always to keep their strike zone, they always try and set up at the same height all the time in order to keep that strike zone in the same location, so to speak. So, and they talk about that they don't want you as an official, if you're the R1, they don't want you coming down or moving up. They want you to stay at the same height as you are normally with you are for watching the game. So, all right.
Well, yeah, other than watching the flight of the ball, that's all I would know. But
you know. Okay. We'll get more into libero situations kind of when we get into the rotational and back row stuff, because a lot of what the libero does is going to fall under illegal attack or back row type of plays. So we'll get into that more. Okay. Center line violations. A player may touch the center line or touch the floor on the opposite side with their hand or their foot if their part of their hand or their foot remains on the center line. Okay, that's legal. Once they're 100%, and for the hand, we deem that the wrist. If the wrist is beyond the center line, then you have you have an under violation, or if the entire foot is behind, and you got to be watching. The attacker comes up, lands with their foot, but then turns so that now their foot is no longer what we call shadowing the line. Then you have a violation when they turn to push off and they go the other way. If they've rotated their foot in such a manner that it puts their foot completely over the other direction, you're going to have a center line fault. What happens if a player crosses the center line between the sideline and the pole? Do we have anything there? Nope, no longer. So player can create an attack. You see this upper level college all the time, is that they'll come in, they'll make that attack, they'll land, and they'll actually go right under and come back around the pole. They'll leave and walk right under between the sideline and the pole and come back around. So high school, we have the same thing, cannot. Outside of the antennas, the ball is playable up until it has completely crossed the plane of the net outside the antennas. Once that ball has completely crossed, you may no longer pursue it. Okay, so there is no what we used to call pursuit in college. There is none of that in high school. They can play it up to the fact that up to it's 100% past the plane of the net. Can a player go around and play it from the other side? In other words, can I circle around and play it where I'm standing, my feet are standing on the opponent's side of the net outside the court. And as long as the ball has not crossed that plane, I can play it back towards my court.
Yes, you don't interfere with someone
Right.
else on the other side.
Basically, yeah. Just think it's all the ball. That's all that you got to remember there. It's when the ball is 100%, no longer can it be played back. If part of that ball is still in the neutral zone or the plane, you can play on, and they bring it back to their side, play on. Okay. A player shall not contact a ball which is completely on the opponent's side of the net unless it is considered a legal block. Okay. So if the ball is still, if the setter is there making a play on the ball, there's second one, and they're maybe doing a back set, and it's parallel or close to the net, they still may not be blocked until it has penetrated the plane of the net. So if a player comes over and touches that ball after the setter sets it on the second hit, you're going to have an over violation. Okay. If it is the third hit or you deem it as an attack, then that changes the situation and they may come across the plane of the net and touch that ball. Okay. We all know a serve may not be blocked. Okay. So again, that goes back to the definition of a block. So if they're beyond that sort of 3-4 foot area, that's no longer considered a block. Okay. And we're going to let them jump and block or touch the ball. Okay. A net fault will occur when you deem that the opponent has interfered with the other team's ability to play the ball. So this can happen in a lot of ways. It can be under the net where, let's say the ball is falling and the opposite team sticks their foot out and contacts it, okay, and keeps that player from making a dig on that team, okay, we're going to call that a net violation. If that ball goes into the net and I'm there and I move my hand in such a way that I deflect that ball through the net, okay, we're going to call that a net violation. Is that what you're talking about, Jerry? What you're trying to show?
That's what Santa Barbara City College used to do a few years ago.
What they would try and intentionally
Yeah,
direct
they
the ball
would put the
down and
fingers
if it
through
came
the-
into the
as
plane,
the
right,
ball
if it came into the
ultimately
body of
dropped
the
to the
net,
ground.
they would intentionally do this to try and put the ball down to keep the other team from playing it out of the net.
Correct.
So that is not legal. So we call that a net. Okay.
I heard that's what the Ventura High boys team does too.
Hey, we do what we got to do.
Yeah. All right. We have
Only if we're playing Nordhoff, though.
any questions on interference by the other side? Interference to play the ball? Okay. All right. We have two terms. We have a double fault and we have a simultaneous fault. A double fault occurs when opposing players commit a fault at the same time. So that would be an under on one team and a net on the other team at the same time. Okay. If you clearly have one happen before the other, we do not have a double fault. Okay. We have one fault happened first. So if the player puts their foot across the center line prior to the other player contacting the net, you're going to have an under, or an under, you're not going to have a double fault. If it happens simultaneously or you cannot determine if it was simultaneous or not, then you're going to issue a replay if you feel it was a double fault. Okay, and a lot of times it will be two. It'll be the R1 has one whistle and the R2 has a second whistle. So you're doing that, and it might take you two coming together to determine if it was exactly at the same time or if one occurred before the other. Okay. A simultaneous fault is where two players on the same team commit faults at the same time. So you could have a net contacting a net on one and a foot touching on the going under, but they're both on the same team. You're just going to pick one. You're not going to signal or with both faults. You're just going to take one and say, okay, we have the net, and we're going to give the rally or the point. All right. Okay. We know that delaying, for delays in Rule 9, if a substitute is delayed, okay, that can be a yellow card, okay, a delay warning. If the wrong substitute comes into the zone and tries to replace a wrong player, same thing, we're going to have a yellow card. If we have a delay can also occur because the team refuses to come out onto the floor when directed to do so at the end of a timeout, or there is a situation where there is water in the playing area and you have to take time to clean up the water. That could also be considered a delay. All right. Liberos and their substitutions. Okay, when you have the libero in the game, we know that the libero must come out for one serve between going back in for another player, with the exception of if the libero themselves are going to be the server. If the libero themselves are going to be the server, they may go from whatever position they were last in directly back to serve the ball, okay? But if they are not going to be the server, when they are replaced, they have to stay out for one serve. And then they can go after that first serve, they can go back in and replace a different player in the back row. Okay. I'm just going through things I highlighted in here. All right. When checking the lineups with the libero, we know that we want to make sure that the libero stays off the court until you have checked the lineup, and then you wave the libero onto the court after you've checked the lineup. So you'll see that a lot at the beginning of the year, where the libero will just go right onto the court and stand there like he's ready to play. He or she's ready to play there. Okay. New rule this year, if a team member, a bench player, or assistant coach receives a warning or a YUD, then the head coach will not lose the right. They can stand, they can continue to stand for the remainder of the match, okay? If we get a red card situation, then it's something different. Okay, but a warning or a delay, we are not going to penalize the head coach by making him sit for the remainder of the match. However, if the head coach gets it directly, take that back. Somebody look that up for me. If the head coach directly gets a yellow card, not on there, do they lose their right to stand?
No, that's one of the rule changes, I believe, this year.
It is a rule change. So you're saying, you think, so let me look it up. Hang on.
Is it them directly or someone on their bench?
That's the thing. I think in the rule it says bench, but let me read exactly what the new wording is. Oh, nope. Okay. When a yellow card is issued, when a yellow card is issued for unsporting conduct to the head coach, assistant coaches, or team bench, the head coach will no longer be required to remain seated. So yes, if the head coach gets a warning, the head coach can still stand. Okay, so yellow card on the head coach for complaining to you or complaining about the sets, okay, and you give him a yellow card, he can continue to stand until he gets another violation. So it's head coach, it's anybody with the yellow card.
I like that. Cool.
Yeah, that is. Okay. All right, I've got some ball handling presentation to go through. This presentation, the videos, like I remember the last time, there are videos embedded within this slide presentation that I can't enlarge them, but I have those same videos outside of the slide presentation. And so I can use those videos. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go through everything, go through the presentation, and then I'll bring in the videos and we'll look at the videos and dissect the videos after we've completed the slide presentation. Because the one in, like I said, the one in the presentation, the picture ends up being so small usually that it's going to be really hard for you guys to see. So. Okay, that'll be after, hang on. Okay, so this is a Southern California presentation, or it came from them. All right. This is ball handling, 4 ways to earn points. This is sort of this is the outline of what we're going to handle. We're going to go over the 4 ways to earn points, the criteria for judging ball handling, the standard for judging ball handling, consistency, how to judge technique, staying up, keeping up with the action or the movement of the ball, and then spirit of the situations and spirit of the rule. Okay, so 4 ways to earn points is an ace, serve, nobody touches it, a kill, a stuff block, or a error on the opponent.
Error. The skills that assist in earning points come from a variety of skills. Volleyball, being a rebound sport, allows players to use any part of the body rather than an implement to play the ball, as long as it is legal. And there lies the reason ball handling judgment is so difficult to discern for all levels of officials. Most of the officiating decisions in volleyball require some sort of judgment, but are often cut and dry. Ball lands in or out. A player touches the ball before it goes out of bounds. A player touches the net or a player crossing under the net. But judging contacts is more difficult. The first referee is exclusively responsible for judging ball handling faults to ensure the consistency of that aspect of the game.
There are different rules governing player contacts, which are dependent upon the sequence of the skill being performed. Normally, a team receives an opponent's serve or attack with a pass or dig, and then a teammate, preferably the setter, follows with a set to a teammate, and then an attack over the net. The opponents defend the attack with a block or dig, and the sequence repeats until one team cannot return the opponent's attack, or when a team commits a fault, resulting in the other team winning the rally and the point. Let's take a look at the specific rules governing ball handling. 1, the block does not count as a contact. 2, a legal contact can be made with any part of the body. 3, it must be hit cleanly. And 4, the ball cannot be caught or thrown, cannot visibly come to rest, or involved in prolonged contact. There's a slight variation to the ball handling fault rule in an effort to allow play to continue. Multiple contacts are permitted when the first ball over the net rebounds from one part of the player's body to one or more parts of the body in one attempt to block, or by a player making a team's first contact, as long as the successive contact results in one attempt to play the ball. When there are simultaneous contacts by teammates, two players going after the same ball, either player can make the next play, as long as the team still has one or two allowable contacts. But in this video, player number 3 clearly contacts the ball first by herself and then contacts the ball again, which is illegal. And this time, number 12 digs the ball alone and then tries to save the third ball over.
I think we lose the video there. That video right there, I don't have it on another one. The videos that I have that I'll show you at the end are actual real gameplay where they're going to go into ball handling situations. So not those videos. That video actually, I think, is part of the NFHS videos that were given to us, those 6 hours. That's in there. Okay. So on a team, we know for the first ball contact, we know you cannot throw it, have a lift, you can't throw it, and it may not come to rest. Okay. You may have double contact as long as the ball does not come to rest or roll. Okay. On a second or a third contact, you cannot have a double contact. So that's where sets are going to come into play. Okay, and it does not matter what the player or the ball does before the contact is made or after the contact is completed. So they want you judging it on what you see with the hands and the ball, or the body part and the ball, not with looking at the position of the player's body or the spin of the ball or any of that. All those need to be judged basically on what you see. Okay. Legal contact is a touch of the ball by any part of the player's body, which does not allow the ball to visibly come to rest or involve prolonged contact with a player's body. So that would be the roll, is if it starts here and rolls down, you now have prolonged contact, okay? They're trying, obviously the rationale behind this was they wanted longer rallies and more play, more exciting play. All right. This is the videos that I have that I'll be able to show you in a better context where you'll be able to see it, but let's run through it, but then I'll bring it back. Okay, right there is what you're looking at. I know it's hard to see. We're watching this second contact by the player here, right there. Okay. And here. I think they're going to zoom in here. But again, we'll go through this again at the end where I have a better, I can make it a lot larger. Block, up, okay. We're going to zoom in on the middle blocker here in a second. Okay. Right there is that push. Right there is what they're looking at. Is that push? Here you go. A little better. Okay. Is that legal contact?
So is Jamie. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So what they want to talk about is just because you're underneath the ball does not automatically mean you're going to have a legal contact. You need to see the whole play. All right. Okay, so what is legal and allowed for the ball handling is left to the referee's discretion. We all know some of us will call this tighter, some of us are going to call this looser, okay? What coaches can live with that, right, coaches? They can live with that as long as you remain consistent, okay? Whether you're going to be calling it tight or whether you're going to be calling it loose, all right? So you want to stay consistent in your judgment of the ball, okay? Okay, these are questionable. These are very judgment. They're actually don't give us a, they're not going to give us a whether it is or is not the correct call. So this is kind of what they're showing, is that you have to make those judgments on your own. So it's that jump by the setter that they're looking at here. We're going to talk about this. I'm just showing it to you now. We're going to stop and discuss this after we're done with the presentation and see what people think. There's a different play. So it's that set that they're looking at. Here comes this set. You could see there was some rotation on the ball. It has a little spin to it after it comes off the setter's hands. But the question is, again, we're not using the spin to determine, did the referee see two contacts? Here it is slowed down. Okay. Consistency, like we talked about. So they want to see consistency, whether it's tight or loose. Okay. Keep that consistency is the most important thing. You're going to have problems when you're not calling what you called in the first set. If you're not calling it the same in the third set, that's when coaches are going to start to get upset. I do this. I always observe. I try and observe my setters, especially during warm-ups, to see how they set, if they have a particular way, a particular form. Okay. I was always taught to judge, if you're set your limit on, if you have one setter who's not as skilled as the other setter, but you're still deeming that their sets are legal, that is the same level you should be judging the better setter at. So you have to give that setter, the better setter, that benefit as well if you're giving it to the less skilled setter. Okay, so this is what I talked about earlier. Don't look at the position don't look at their shoulder position, their feet position. Look at the ball and the hands, okay? Or whichever part is making contact. Evaluate what happens during, not before or after the entire contact. And the length, the timing of the contact should be consistent for all. So that is, does it sit in their hands longer? Now you have a prolonged contact. So, but again, you got to keep that consistent. So be ready, read the ball handling action, react to the ball handling. Okay, whistle a violation when you see it. Can be a very tough call for a lot of officials. This is sort of one of those calls, one of those areas that sort of graduates you on to moving up in being an official. It comes with experience. It often takes a few years before you're really comfortable judging this. So it is definitely a pivotal point though. Okay. If you get screened, we've talked about this, I believe, before. If you get screened, your R2 can help you. If they are sure, if they know you were screened from seeing the play, then it is acceptable to have the R2 help you by giving you a discrete signal or a signal to make that call. Okay. The better the players, the faster the action. We all know that. There will be less time between contacts. So don't ping pong with the ball, okay? Especially as the R1, I try and sort of stay back and just sort of have a wide focus to take in everything. And you're watching where the next contact is going to be made, okay? Try and get there with your attention before the ball gets there. So you're already ready to make that call, okay? The ball can be handled in lots of different ways. Expect the unexpected. If the ball comes down at the net, get visual help from the second referee for a possible ball handling violation. So that's what we talked about, is if you're blocked by other players or their back is turned to you, it could be the player that's playing the ball that you cannot see because they have their back to you and they're playing it down close, then you're going to get help from your second referee. Okay. We know we talked about this earlier, multiple contacts on the first hit are allowed. And it doesn't matter whether it's hard driven or whether it's just a looping free ball that's coming over. It's first contact is first contact. You allow multiple contacts as long as the ball did not come to rest, was not thrown, or did not have prolonged contact. On the second hit, now we're going to be judging it tighter. Now multiple contacts are no longer allowed. So this is where mostly you're going to be judging your setting techniques is here, okay? And focus on the setter's hands, not necessarily other parts of their body. Okay, remember in setting, we need them to contact, both hands need to contact the ball simultaneously, okay? Not a 1-2, okay? We've all seen that. We know what a definition of a spike is. A tip is directing the ball over the top of a block normally onto the opponent's court. It's got a loop to it. And an overhead pass is directed finger action, directing the ball over the net. So that's basically like a set that you're going to be attacking with. Okay, call what you actually see. Trust yourself. Don't be influenced by other outside factors. And anticipate, but never assume. Okay. All right. So, are there any
I have a quick.
questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Jeff. It's Jack.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, what's your version on? I mean, we talk about consistent play in a match. I get that. What's your interpretation of the boys' game in setting versus the girls? You know, which is, changes year to year. You know what I'm talking about, just what people say. They take the ball a lot lower. And they may, it's just, I think that's a good question for 3s, 4s, and 1, 2s, and 3s.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is. Yeah, boys will tend to play the ball lower into their body, okay? The way I judge that is I watch, did they move when they take that? Are they going in one direction? Doesn't matter. I don't care if they're taking it deep. I don't care if they're taking it by their belly button. They're taking it next to their chest. Okay. If they're going one direction with it, if they're just coming straight out with it, then that I'm letting it go. But what's going to be the problem is when they come down with it and then go. Is that what you mean, Jack? Is that
exactly? And that's kind of like what it's kind of like what I do as well. But I just. For some of the, Tim, what do you think on that? Is Tim away? Tim.
Yeah, it definitely seems like guys tend to deep dish more than girls do. I'm trying to get my guys to stop doing that, as a matter of fact.
Okay, cool.
The one thing
taking the ball to Harold.
Yeah, the thing I've always had the problem with are I've had in the past coaches that are coming from the beach or players that are coming from the beach where they call that differently is that I'll start to call those deep dishes and they'll throw a fit going, how is that? They don't understand why I'm calling those on the hard court.
Exactly.
On the beach, they're very much looser with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the 3 videos that were embedded in the presentation. So we're going to spend about 10 minutes looking at them and discussing them, and I want your guys' input as to what you think on these particular calls, okay? In this first one, I'll let you know, they are determining that these are all legal contacts in this first set of videos. Hang on, I'll make it bigger. Okay, there, and now she comes up with that. Okay, it's after the block that we're looking at. All right, what are you guys seeing? What are you guys seeing in that play?
Legal.
Legal. Why is it legal?
I think she used a fist.
Yeah. Okay. Her hand's not open. She's got a fist. Okay. So that's a key factors that you want to be looking for is what is the position of their hand.
Yeah, but a fist doesn't matter though, right?
Well,
if it comes off sharply, right?
If it comes off quick, the reason you want to know if it's a fist is if it comes off fast, you're much more likely to have a legal single contact. If you have an open palm and now that ball isn't coming off immediately, then that, to me, that's indicating that you do have prolonged contact with the ball can't rest.
I do think a fist matters, actually. It's easier to see. An open hand is something, that's more likely that it's going to rest.
That's not the rule, though, right?
No, the rule does not specifically.
No, it doesn't say anything about a fist. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right, and then that's also obviously that's a block and then a play on the ball, which is legal, being that contact we're counting now after the block is the first contact. I think they're going to come in tighter here in a minute. Slow it down. Here we go. All right. You have the touch, and then the other. Now, what I think, sorry, let me stop that. Hang on. In that previous one, what I think they're looking at, what they're talking about, is that if you can see my screen, she contacts it like this. Okay, with 2 fists, but they're not even, okay? But first contact, that's okay. We're going to allow that unless you were to rule that they were 2 separate attempts to play the ball. So if it wasn't like this, where she's there like this, but was more like this, okay, now you have 2 separate attempts to play the ball and you have a different situation.
Right.
Have any comment on that? Okay, Marlo, you're with me? All right. Thank you. All right. This is a new play. Okay. We're looking at the middle blocker here when she plays the ball here and then up. They're going to zoom in on it in a second. Here we go. Boom. Okay. What do you guys think on that? Marla, you think it left? Kathy, did you see that?
It looked like it rolled off.
Yeah,
Left.
that one's much more a gray area to me because exactly right. It does look like it could have rolled out of the hand to me. Anybody else see something different?
Hey, was that a block? The first attempt was a block? So that would be the first,
yes.
okay,
First attempt was a block.
That'd be legal.
But no, watch it again. Let me bring it back. Okay.
That's not a double.
That's legal right there. That second contact is what we're talking about.
Now that I looked at that again, I don't think it rolls that much. I think that would be a lift or an illegal contact.
An illegal contact?
That looked legal to me. It didn't even hit the palm of her hand. Looked like it was all fingers.
It was with one hand.
Hang on. Sorry, let me get to the play. I lost the play. Hold on.
Jeff, I think it comes back to a more global issue of what should we all be calling? You know, if all these are legal, we should say, yeah, these are all legal. You better call them legal. Or that third one looks suspicious. I want them all called as lips. It seems like everyone calls something different.
Yeah, you have to be consistent. I agree.
I certainly don't think the first two. I was in agreement with the first two that I would let me personally would let the first two go. Again,
Yeah, me too.
I can't, you know, this is the hardest thing for me to say, well, if this happens, this is how you should call it, because this is where all the judgment comes in. This is what, you know, what we're being paid for is that, and everybody's going to judge this slightly differently. So I can't give you one definitive answer and say, yeah, that's, you know, if that, every time that happens, that's how you should call it.
I guess my question would be on the 50-50s, we let it play, right? Is that the mantra we should go with?
Yes. If you're in doubt, I would give them the benefit of the doubt.
Like that one, right? That was pretty quick. 50-50, let it play.
Correct. Now, if I was calling, you know, I've got my tightness, how tight I call a match or how loose I call a match, it can vary from game to game. I don't call all my matches with the exact same. It's based on the play. So if I was calling this match very tight, I might call that particular play a lift. But if I'm judging it more in the middle, like they said earlier, where they talked about tight versus loose, and they said try and go for the middle, then that would be a situation where this play would go on. And that's what they did here. They ruled this legal in this situation.
Jeff, would you make an exception for the level of play, JV varsity or soft?
I do. I look at the level of play, because the last thing we want to do is, see, when you look at that one more, if you looked at that one more time, it almost like her hand is, can you guys see my picture? Her hand is back a little bit, and if the ball just came off like right here, you might be able to get away with, well, that didn't roll out. It was contact that, you know, it was multiple contact or one contact. But back to your question about judging on the level of play, whether JV, varsity, freshman, definitely I vary what I call, because we don't want to have 50 whistles in a game for ball handling and just break up the game. We want to bring it to a consistent point, but one that's going to allow for development of the players. Okay? Does that, people agree with that? Any disagree?
Hey, you got Ventura Buena, it's 25-24. There's the play. What are you going to do?
If you've been calling, you call it the same way that you've been calling. You got to judge. If you were calling a really tight game, then, and that, you know, and you get a play like that, again, it's your decision. I don't know if I would call that. Honestly, Chris, I don't know if if I'm in a 24-25 and I get that call, I might defer that I'm going to let that go to let the players decide the game, not let me decide the game.
I think you're 100% correct.
But
what about you, Jack? What do you think?
Let me see if I'm unmuted. I do the same thing.
25-24, and you're going to make the play.
I'd let play roll on that one. I looked at it slow motion, and that's when it looked like it sat a little too long. But, you know, probably the best call is to let that go on. I think that's what the state wants anyway now, right?
Yeah, that is true. All right, so this next group, these have not been determined whether they are correct or incorrect in terms of ball handling. So this is much more, you got to look at it and see how you would call these. Okay, so that's the play. It's this dump by the setter, okay? that you're looking at. It is the second contact, so no multiples allowed. How would we rule on this? They're gonna run it again. Here's slow motion. Here it is again in slow motion.
I wouldn't have called that.
Legal.
I call legal too.
To me, it almost looks worse to me in real time than it does in slow motion.
Yeah, in slow, her hands simultaneously contact that.
Right. It doesn't look as good.
She does a lot of weird stuff before the contact, but.
And again,
we're not supposed to judge on that, though.
Exactly. That's
my point.
Is that in fast motion, it does look, to me, it looks worse than it does when you slow it down and really look at it. Yeah, her shoulders don't look straight. She looks like she's throwing her hands at the ball, but when you slow it down, it looks more like it is one contact or simultaneous contact.
Jeff, what did he call it? Double or a lift?
No, he called a double on that. Yeah. Now, I know some officials I've worked with, high-level officials, they, not saying this is correct, they tend to, if it's an attack ball like that was, they tend to be a little tighter than if it was just a set, which is not correct. You do not have to subscribe to that theory. Your set and your attack should be judged on the same level. So, anybody comment on that one? Roy, what did you think? Are you there?
Roy's there. He's been typing.
I'm not seeing the chat.
Oh.
Okay, I just unmuted. I didn't. Sorry, I was muted while this whole thing was going on. It plays. If you watch the point of contact, there was no double contact as a result of the fact that at the moment of contact, regardless of what it took for her to get there, and all of the rest of the stuff before and after, just simply at the point of contact, I don't see a double contact.
Yeah. So.
And you're going to get complaints, and I'm not saying you won't because it looks ugly.
You're right.
But that's where consistency comes in.
And I agree. I mean, that's honestly a good play to be watching and discussing because it's got so many variables in it in terms of what it looks like fast versus slow, her form, other things. So, Robert, why don't you call back the first-year officials? We'll finish this out, and then we're going to go on to the test, I think.
Jeff,
one
quick question about ball handling.
Yeah.
I tend to find myself looser for setters. Like if it's a bad pass and a non-setter's trying to get to it and they make, a marginal set, I tend to call it. But I watched those videos that you sent out, and I know you're supposed to be even no matter who it is. Is that another mantra? I mean, should we, if it's a non-setter, should we keep it loose too?
No, you're supposed to judge your non-setters. If the setter's out, if the setter takes that first pass, takes the first contact and cannot set the ball, you're supposed to be judging the other players on the same level that you would judge the setter. Now, again, what I said earlier, when I have setters on one team versus the other, they're different skill levels.
I understand that.
You're going to judge that non-setter on the level of the lower setter. If you're letting that lower setter have leeway, you're going to give that much leeway to that non-setter.
I totally understand that.
Right, Roy, and they've taken out the athletic play. That is no longer in the book. Is that correct?
In high school, there was never an athletic play.
Okay.
That is part. In fact, it used to be in the college ball handling directive. It's not even the college ball handling directive anymore, and it was never in the high school ball handling directive.
So, But I remember having discussions with coaches about that in the high school setting because it kind of worked its way down, and that people thought
Yes,
that,
it did.
that was sort of in the time when everybody, we want as much play as possible, you know?
Yeah.
Like let
You're
everything
right.
go.
You're right, Jeff. You're right about that because when I was coaching and, 30 years, they did call it athletic, but I don't think it was in the book that way. But if the setter makes that athletic play, to let it go. I mean, I remember that was the terminology through coaching, but I don't think it was in the book.
Right. Yep. Okay, it's going to be right there. Okay, so that's set. They're going to show it to you a couple more times, and we'll get a close-up. Here it is, slow-mo.
It looks like it's over controlled by the right hand, maybe.
Seems like a low bar.
Okay, here it is. So, how would you call it? Marla, how would you call that? You got to unmute.
My screen is white again.
Oh,
I don't see anything right now. I don't know what happened.
all right.
My
Other
screen
people,
says Zoom right now.
okay. Other people are seeing it, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see
Happened
it.
too.
Okay.
Let me see.
Dave, you're saying you'd let that go? Or you'd call it? I saw some thumb eyes.
So you asked if I could see the screen. That's
Oh,
what-
okay. Sorry, I thought you were commenting on the play. All right.
Is he calling that on the setter or on the third hit?
It's on
The
the
setter.
setter, Marianne. So, and everybody's back. That's good. Okay.
I thought she was in good position, and I thought I would have let it go.
Yeah,
Let's watch it
I would
again.
have called it more on the third one.
Her wrists
No.
broke. Her wrists shuffled this way.
Here it is in slow. And see, I can
That's more double.
legitimize that call as being as calling that as a lift, or calling that as a double rather.
It's gone.
Yeah, that was the last one on there. So, see, I think you can right before that you can slightly see that her hands are not completely even. That one hand does look like it just hits the ball a split second after the first hand. Ron, what do you think? Mr. King, what's your feeling?
You would have to see how she sets the whole game, though, not just one play.
Well, that's true, but we talked about that. We did talk about that earlier, that we want to watch the setter, how they warm up, and we want to keep it consistent with the entire game. But we only have this one to judge on. You are correct. All right.
This is varsity, yeah.
I'm assuming. So yeah, this was provided to me by Southern Cal. I did not find this on my own or get this from a coach. This was provided by Southern Cal.
This
So,
is like a private. This is like a private school, to be honest with you.
yeah. Or it could be a small school varsity.
Yeah.
It seems like if you call that, Jeff, you got to be on top of everything now, you know.
I would say even for her, that's not a great set. Even having her not warm up.
So, all right. Okay, so I'm going to stop share. All right. Any questions before we move on to taking the quiz? Okay, Marianne, how'd things go in your session?
Good. I didn't quite get to touch on roll 12, but I covered everything else. So.
All right, that's good. All right. So, Miss Robert, are you there? Okay, you want to send out the poll to everybody?
Yeah, here it comes right now.
It's not doing anything.
Is that you, Marianne?
Yeah.
That's because they won't do it until, if we're co-hosts, it won't happen until everybody's completed it. It won't populate until until you finish your until they finish the task. Then it'll start to populate.
Are we supposed to mark our answers?
If you want to, you mean mark them on a separate sheet of paper or mark them on the poll?
Mark them on the screen.
Yeah, you got to use your mouse to click the correct answer.
I'm doing that.
Ask Robert. He set it up.
Marianne, you can't take the quiz because hosts don't have access. You just
Okay.
you see it from the answers.
Okay.
Right.
Hey, Robert, number 4.
Yes.
What's the complete the sentence?
Let me go to the doc really quick. I copied and pasted that one in.
It's missing the question.
It's correct.
It's correct. Yeah. Each term of service. So each server has one reserve per term of service.
Yeah, mine doesn't have the question, so that's why.
I'm not able to go to the next question.
You have to scroll down.
False. Correct. Good.
Oh wait, are we allowed to work on this together?
No.
Oh, okay.
After everybody's done, we'll work on it together.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's completely anonymous, so don't worry about getting it wrong.
Hey, Jeff,
Yep.
I have a quick question. I don't know how to get back to my test that I was doing, but I think it was number 4 where it says number 23 is trying to serve and he tosses it and it hits the ground and the R1 lets him do a reserve and then
Right.
he's replaced by number 7. What are you asking in that question?
So you have
Like if you read the end of the question, it says number 7 is subbed in and he tosses the ball and lets it hit the ground. And then it says and that's how the question ends.
I think, Robert, it got cut off. Maybe it was, sorry, I don't know if there's a limit to the number of characters you can use.
I don't know what the is doing.
Jamie, it's correct. That's what they told me. It's correct.
Yeah, it's asking if they get another reserve.
Yeah, I guess I made the question too long. I didn't realize we had a limit on the number of characters we were allowed to use or space.
It's all good.
We'll discuss it. It'll come when we discuss it, Jamie. It'll become clear.
Hey, Jeff, it's Larry Coleman. I have no idea where we're at.
We're taking. You just got here, Larry?
Yeah,
Yeah, just hang out. We're doing this quiz.
Oh, okay.
Can you see the quiz?
No, I can't.
Okay. So.
Marianne will walk me through it.
Yeah.
Want the answers?
I'll read it. We're going to go over it.
Oh, good. Well, I'd be interested in that. Thank you. I'm sorry. It took forever.
Okay.
Larry, this is Steve. Did you enjoy the tennis? I can't hear you.
Yes, I had to unmute. Yes, absolutely. You had a great time watching tennis, especially teams comeback.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll hold off on talking about tennis until the rest of the people think the quiz.
I'm sorry. It's my fault as usual.
No, it was mine. Dead time.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to mute, Larry.
Troublemaker.
Thanks, Dick.
All right. Is there anyone else taking the quiz?
There should be a few more. We had 42, but that included all of us that couldn't take it.
My quiz was 100 questions. Was anyone else's?
You got all of them.
I made a special one for you, Tim.
Ha ha, Tim Mays.
Almost done with it.
Jeff, my quiz disappeared.
Okay, well. Robert, did you stop the quiz?
Not yet.
Sorry, we can't. We try to account for technological issues.
Yeah, this time we were just a lot better at getting them early.
Yeah.
Jerry, we're over here. I'm just kidding.
All right, about one more minute, guys. We'll stop it there and we'll go over them. All right, Robert, why don't you end it?
Right.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. I didn't know. I thought I was muted.
I'm gonna get some screen cleaner, huh?
Did you, okay, you shared the results? All right, so let's go. The libero is listed on the roster with 2 different numbers. Is this legal or illegal?
Legal.
This is legal, yes, because we're assuming the first number is supposed to be their team jersey number, not their libero number. The second number is supposed to be their libero number. Are we going to do anything if it's not that way? No. Okay, but in the book, the manual, that's what it says.
Does it show putting an L before the libero number?
It does not. No, and this is the roster.
Okay.
This is the roster we're talking about.
Okay, cool.
But you would always, I mean, it might be a good preventative officiating to ask if that's turned in and say, hey, number 3//25, that's your libero, correct? And
So Jeff, if they are going to wear a different shirt as a defensive specialist, they would have that separate number on there.
Correct.
Okay, so just so people know that if they're libero, as the libero, they're going to have 1 number. They would not have 2 libero numbers. They'd have a defensive specialist number and a libero number.
Or the libero could be the setter too, not necessarily DS, just another player.
Correct.
Because liberos often can switch out for that. That can happen. All right. Second question. Player 25 is attempting to enter the game and was not listed on the roster. The R2 instructs the scorer to add number 25 to the roster and lets 25 enter without penalty.
False substitution.
That is incorrect. We talked about that in our meeting. When you determine that you have a player that was not listed on the roster, you're going to penalize at that point. And that penalty would be a red loss of rally. Okay? The server contacts the ball that is held while the server contacts a serve while the ball is held in her hand. So that's what I talked about. They're holding the ball in one hand and contacting it here. Okay. In high school, that is legal. That is a legal serve in high school. All right. For number 4, number 23 for Team A rotates into the serving position. He tosses the ball for service and lets it drop to the floor. A reserve is called by the R1. After 3 more serves, or after 3 serves total, it doesn't matter, number 23 is replaced by number 7. They have not lost the serve yet. Same team is still serving. Who also tosses the ball for service and lets it drop to the ground. The R1 calls an illegal serve.
Can we scroll down to see the question?
I know you couldn't. That's where they got cut off. We didn't have enough. We didn't have enough to finish that. Enough digits, I guess, or enough space. So is that legal or illegal?
It's legal.
When the second serve, basically the second server came in for the first server, it does the exact same thing. He throws it up, doesn't like the toss, lets it hit the ground, and then wants to reserve. Are we going to let him reserve again, or are we going to issue a side out?
No, it's reserve.
Okay.
You get 1 reserve for each term of service.
Each person.
Each person gets a reserve. So, correct.
No. Term of service.
Yeah. Term.
You look.
Their term of service. Each person's
Correct.
term of service.
Correct. Their term of player number 27 who left the game, or 23 rather, who left the game. His term of service ended when he was subbed out for.
Correct.
The new player comes in, that's starting his term of service, even though it's the same
Correct.
serving position or location, okay, in the rotation. So, yeah, we let that go. The second person gets 1 also, okay?
Is that, Jeff, is that different? Is that new? Because I could have sworn Roy taught me that term of service means the term in that serving position order.
And that was confusing, so it's a great question. I thought the same, but
yeah, but it's when the term. Well, I know.
So
it's correct.
Each person gets that. Okay, gotcha.
Each person that comes in to serve in that spot gets 1 reserve.
Right,
Okay,
but the only thing you're looking for is if 23 comes back in and asks for another reserve, then you have loss of rally.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yep.
That makes sense.
That would be, yeah, that would be weird.
It would be.
The middle blocker on team B reaches, this is the next question, reaches over the net and contacts the setter's hands as she is setting the ball. The ball is completely on team A's side of the net. The R1 lets play continue. That would be incorrect. That was an interference by the middle blocker, interfering with the setter's legitimate effort to play the ball. Okay.
Can you scroll down the questions so we can see them?
You should be able to on your screen.
I just scrolled them down. Did that move it for everybody?
It's on the right side.
No,
No, you have
each
to
person,
do it
each
yourself.
person has
Each person
to do
does
it.
it.
Okay. A replay is called because an errant ball enters the court during play. Team A inserts the libero prior to the next serve. The R2 denies entry to the libero. Correct or incorrect?
Correct.
It is correct. During a reserve, nothing may happen.
Correct.
Okay, you cannot have any subs enter. You cannot call a timeout. You cannot replace a libero. You cannot do a lineup check. Okay, or any of that. None of that can happen on a reserve or a replay. With the exception, the only exception is if it involves an injury. If we have an injury, then there is a different set. Then we do allow some different things to happen. Okay. Number 7, an illegal substitute attempts to enter the set. The R1 issues an unnecessary delay. Okay. This one, we talked about this. Oh, yes, that's correct. That is true. It's an unnecessary delay. So this is not a situation where we don't have the setter. It's not the roster issue where we don't have that number, where they weren't listed on the roster. It's more of the wrong substitute comes in and tries to get into the game for a player that they can't get into.
Right. Yeah.
That's the situation there. So yes, it's an unnecessary delay. Number 8, during a timeout, the coach tells R2 that number 12 will be substituting for number 10. At the end of the timeout, number 12 enters the court with the rest of the team. Correct or incorrect?
Incorrect.
Incorrect. We are going to, they have to wait till the conclusion of the timeout, and then at the conclusion of the timeout, you're going to do a normal substitution procedure of bringing number 12 up to the line for number 10, and they're going to cross like normal, like we do with every other substitution. Okay.
Hey, Jeff, can you go real quick? Can you just go order of operations real quick for everyone? Giving it back to R1 when you do all that, when there is a substitution during a timeout. So
I think, actually, I might need a little help on this. I think at the end of the timeout, we're going to give it back to the R, then we're going to do then we're going to conduct the substitution.
No.
You think we do
the substitution? You take the game, you do your double whistle, substitution, put them in, then give the game back.
Okay.
No, you're going to signal, it's a timeout that was called. So you're going to signal first how many timeouts have been taken.
He was asking about subs.
I know, but you have to finish your timeout sequence first.
Oh.
And then you start your substitution sequence, and then you return the match,
You
the
hand it
game.
back at that point. Okay. All right.
That is a whole different question.
But yeah, he was asking about the sequence, but you're talking about a timeout, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Coming out.
Yeah, just the order of operations, because I feel like everyone does their own thing when it comes to timeouts at substitution.
I thought you were asking about multiplication, division, addition.
That too.
I'm a grade school teacher. That's right where I go when you said order of operations. All right. The coach. Okay. Number 9 here. The coach on Team A calls a timeout and requests the R1 to review a non-judgment decision that occurred in the previous play. Regardless of the outcome, Team A will be charged with a timeout.
Yes.
Incorrect. It's incorrect.
Only if they win, and it is if it is a rule that they win, we take the timeout as the official.
Correct.
It's right. It's the disposition of the call. So if he's
Depends-
correct and he changes that, it's not a timeout.
Yep.
No, but it says regardless of the outcome, Team A will be charged with a timeout. If the outcome is that the referee has to reverse his decision because of a rule interpretation,
Incorrect, yeah.
then that's.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Correct.
Correct. They will not, if the referee reverses the decision, it's a timeout charge to the referee, not to the team. They
Right.
don't- If they lose it though, if the R1 determines that the coach they're not going to reverse the decision, then they lose the timeout.
Right.
Yeah.
On a
So
on a
has to
non-judgment
be
call.
correct.
Yeah, I got it right. I just said it wrong here.
Yeah. Non-judgment. Key there, folks. Non-judgment call. Okay. The R1 issues a yellow card to number 6, who is sitting on the bench for complaining about the sets. The head coach may continue to stand and coach the remainder of the match. And yes, we talked about that. Almost everybody got that right. Yeah, we're going to allow the head coach to stand until we move to the next level of sanction, which would be a red card. Okay, or we have multiple problems. Okay. Right, because you can issue an unsporting on number 6, and then you can issue it to another player as well, and they're not going to meet up. Correct? We're not gonna lay one on top of the other. If two different individual players get yellow carded. So, all right.
Yes, you cannot identify the player.
Correct. Right.
I see that the timeout for a team or a coach calls it to discuss a call. I understand that question. In high school, is a team allowed to go to the back line to, I guess, challenge a call? And is that considered a timeout? I've seen that happen. Is that only in a club situation that they challenge a call by placing their team on the back line? And if so, how does that work?
You're not allowed to protest the call in high school.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, only in club?
That's
Yep.
a club. That's a club.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And the one thing, going back to that one about the coach, the coach has to do that before you whistle before the next serve. So that one where the coach wants to challenge a decision has to happen before the next serve. If the next serve happens, can't go back and challenge that decision any longer.
So Jeff, if you're out of timeouts, even if you're right on an application of a rule, you still cannot call timeout, right?
I believe
you
that
have to have a timeout to call a timeout, right?
I believe that is correct.
Well, yeah, because what if he doesn't change his mind?
Well, then you could
Issue a delay.
Yeah, then you
that's
get
what I
a
was
yud
gonna say.
card on top of it all.
I'm going to look that up, Tim. That's a good question. I don't know exactly. I'm not certain on that one.
I've gone through the rule book all day today, and there's nothing in there saying that if he changes his mind and the guy didn't have a timeout. No, it would be a third timeout. You would get a delay, and then you would lose a point, I think, because it's a third timeout you're taking.
So you need to have at least one timeout to do that
Yeah.
situation. Okay.
Well, no, Marianne, but what if I want to challenge and I'm willing to risk?
You're willing to
You can't
risk
challenge.
that. You have nothing to risk.
Yeah, that's the point.
If you lose, you owe me. So what are you going to give me? You're going to give me a point. I'm going to do something because you have nothing to challenge with.
I agree with you. I agree that if I have no timeouts and I want to challenge the call and I lose, it's going to cost me a point.
Yeah, he's saying he would take that risk for the
Well,
point.
you could take that risk.
That's
but
what
it's
we're
going to
asking.
cost. It's going to cost you a point.
Tim,
Do you recognize this timeout though? The third timeout.
Me personally, I would not. I would say, Coach,
No,
you
I
don't have any
think I would
timeouts.
either.
So
Yeah.
it better be like something you could really prove.
Well,
Tim, that's a good question. I'm going to get back to you on it because
Where's Roy on that one?
what happens? What if we have a situation where I accidentally demand a timeout when I don't have one?
If I have a good R2, they're going to tell you you don't have any, and if they give it to you, you're going to get a yud, and we're going to move on. And if you already had a yud, you're getting a red, and it's a point.
So okay.
Hey Jeff, maybe you could write us on that because that's a good question.
It is
later on.
very good question.
Jeff, just for the sake of of everybody, if the coach is smart enough, and you obviously, possibly they could send the captain over, not the coach, to ask about a rule interpretation. And if the R1 wanted to hear it, they would hear it. If they don't want to hear it, they can send them back. But Tim, to answer your question on that, that's what I would do. I would send my captain over and say, hey, I think there's some confusion on the rule that you've just interpreted. And then you, as the R1, can either shoo them back, or you can take a look at it.
Hey, Jeff, real quick, the answer to the penalty, Rule 11, if the referee's decision prevails, the team requesting the conference shall be charged a timeout. The team has already used its allotted timeouts. A loss of rally point shall be awarded to the opponent.
So,
Yep.
Penalty.
so
there you go.
It's not worth the risk.
Oh, it is. If you're sure, if you are darn sure.
Yeah, if you're sure, it is.
If you're 100% sure, but
If you're 100% sure,
if you
there is
can't
no.
change my mind,
Right, the coach is taking a risk for sure. The coach is taking a risk. But yeah,
Well,
so,
I think the point is we can do that then and take that risk as a coach. Yeah.
Yes.
So
that's
as
a good
an
question.
R,
I didn't know.
so as an R2, do we recognize the
Where we would
timeout?
be as a civilization if we never took a risk, for crying out loud.
you tell him, John.
So for the time, we're 7 after 8.
And that's on page 47 in the penalty.
So
I
we're
was just
No,
given
I-
a glass of
Correct.
wine.
I'm still stuck in the last
I
one.
want one.
on. All right. If you're muted, don't take it personally. We just need to start wrapping this up.
I think I've gone through all the answers. We're done with the quiz. So
Okay.
it's back to you, Robert.
All right. If you have any questions, let me or Jeff know. This will be on YouTube. I'll try and post it tonight. The YouTube account is just Channel Coast Volleyball. If someone you know couldn't make it tonight, please let them know that it'll be on YouTube. Other than that, you're free to go. Feel free to stick around and talk for a little bit if you'd like, but this is the end of the meeting.
Thank you, kind sir.
Thank you. Have a good night, y'all.
Good job.
Real quick, anybody who's not having signed out